Gloria Gaynor and her husband Bill were known as the rich heart of gospel singing, but now with a weak voice and tears in her eyes she's saying goodbye. Not just to the stage but maybe to all of us as well. What went on behind the scenes to make this sad goodbye possible? Why are fans all over the world getting ready for the saddest episode yet? Gloria Gaynor has been more than just Bill Gaynor's wife for a long time. Some of the most powerful Christian songs ever were written with her in mind. She has touched people all over the world with her deep faith and timeless words. She co-wrote many Gaynor classics and gave many of their songs their poetic voice. But now that she is 82 years old, Gloria has sent a heartfelt message to her friends that marks a new part of her journey. Gloria looked very emotional in a new video from the Gaynor singing group as she thanked fans for their love, prayers, and unwavering support over the years. She began, her voice a little shaking, "There comes a time when you feel a soft tug on your heart, a sense that God is calling you to a quieter season." Gloria didn't say the words retirement, but she made it sound like she was stepping away from public outings and big events. She wants to spend more time with her family instead, focused on writing, reflection, and quiet times, which is very different from the many years of touring, performing, and ministering. Gloria Gaynor was born on March 4, 1942 in Michigan into a family with strong Christian beliefs and morals. She grew up in a loving home that valued education, literature, and music. Before she became famous as a legendary lyricist and the matriarch of Southern gospel, she was just Gloria Sickle. Gloria was good with words and speaking from a young age. She did well in school and loved poems, writing, and the arts. Gloria went to Anderson University, a small Christian college in Indiana, after high school to get a degree in English. It was there that she not only grew intellectually but also spiritually, which would later show up in every song she wrote. Gloria met a young active music teacher named Bill Gaynor while she was at Anderson. At first they worked together. Bill had already tried his hand at church music. He and his brother and sister formed the Bill Gaynor Trio. But it wasn't long before their love of faith and art brought them closer together. They became husband and wife in 1962, and their work together would forever change Christian music. Gloria kept teaching English at Alexandria High School at first, while Bill went after music full-time. But her skill with words and deep understanding of poetry started to show up in the trio's songs. Bill wrote the melodies, and Gloria, who was very good at writing, brought them to life with powerful, heartfelt words that millions of people could relate to. The now iconic song Because He Lives, which she wrote during a rough time in their lives, was her big break. While they were expecting their third child and the country was in a state of chaos. By the end of the 1960s, Gloria and Bill Gaynor had what many Christians would have called an ideal life. They were married and had a young family. They loved music and used it to minister to others. On the inside, though, they were going through one of the hardest times of their lives in terms of mind and heart. The world was in a mess. There was a war going on in Vietnam. The civil rights movement shook the whole country. There were protests on college campuses, and traditional Christian values were being publicly questioned. The Gaynors were also dealing with their own doubts at the same time. Bill was tired from traveling non-stop and the stress of his ministry. And Gloria, who was expecting their third child, was filled with worry about the kind of world they would be building for the kid. They relied on their faith during this emotional storm, and an amazing thing took place. Gloria felt a wave of peace and fresh trust in God's promises as she prayed and looked for comfort. In that deep, quiet moment, the lyrics to Because He Lives began to come together. The words weren't written from a place of ease. They were made out of pain, fear, and a pressing need for hope, which is why they touched so many people so deeply. The song was made in 1971, and quickly became a worldwide prayer for Christians who are going through hard times. It wasn't just a song, it meant putting your faith in a God who knows what will happen, even if the present seems unclear. Because He Lives' popularity took the Gaynors, and Gloria in particular, to a new level of power. All of a sudden, she wasn't just the wife of a church singer or a writer who worked behind the scenes. It was known that she had a deep religious voice, with words that could move the heart and soul, still stayed grounded even as the attention got brighter. She kept writing a lot, not just songs but also devotionals, books, and personal essays that were full of wise words about faith, family, and purpose. She wrote more than 700 songs with Bill, and many of them are now heard in churches all over the world. But Gloria's voice may have been truly special because of how she mixed deep theology with real human emotion in her lyrics. She wasn't too proud to write. She wrote about real-life events like being a mother, working in the church, being sad and being happy. From the 1970s to the 1980s, when the Gaynor vocal band became famous and the Homecoming video series began, Gloria's influence stayed strong. Sometimes she was the one with the mic, but most of the time her voice was everywhere. In every word, every prayer, and every moment that moved people. And during this time she became a guide for younger Christian artists and a popular speaker at women's events. Because she was smart and had a calm, reflective style, she stood out in a field that was mostly men. She wasn't just good at writing, she also knew a lot about the human soul, the problems of normal life, and the hope that never fades in faith. Gloria was the quiet power behind it all. She wrote, spoke, and ministered with unmatched grace and wisdom as the Gaither Trio grew into the Gaither Vocal Band and the Homecoming series became a huge hit. Fans look back on not only her gifts to gospel music, but also the amazing journey that took her from being a teacher in a small town to becoming a voice of faith through music. Gloria Gaither became even more of a quiet revolutionary in the world of church music as the 1970s and 1980s went on. There was a steady flow of Gloria's speech beneath their creative and spiritual legacy, even though her husband Bill was often the center of attention. It wasn't loud, but her impact was strong. The Gaither Vocal Band and later the Gaither Homecoming series were loved by Christian families all over the world, not just in the United States. Their music wasn't just for show, it was a way to minister. Gloria's songwriting was unique in the genre, because it had a lot of meaning and literary beauty. When it comes to lyrics, Gloria's were full of theological insight, poetic imagery, and emotional truth in a field that is often ruled by cliché and repetition. She knew how to make theology personal, how to turn the big mysteries of God into lines that regular people could sing as they went through grief, joy, doubt, and faith. The way she added a sense of story to gospel music was one of her most important accomplishments. Gloria wrote more than just songs. She told stories about how people went from darkness to light, from hopelessness to hope, or from death to life again. Her songs had a literary weight that hit close to home. She knew how salvation worked, not just in the Bible but in real life too. She then turned what she knew into songs that still move people today. Gloria was a voice for Christian women of all generations. In addition to her songs, she broke down some quiet hurdles at a time when few women had important theological or creative roles in Christian music. She wasn't one of those performers who wore glitter or shoes, and she wasn't stuck singing backup as the pastor's wife. In a single person, Gloria was smart, a mother, a thinker, and a spiritual leader. She wrote a lot of devotionals, spiritual journals, and reflective essays. A lot of them were about how faith, society, identity, and family all affect each other. Her works helped women deal with motherhood, ministry, and the everyday stresses of life. It was clear that she was having trouble. She didn't act like she knew everything, but she could help people find someone who did. She also left behind a lot of money to spend in the next generation. Gloria cared a lot about teaching and leading others to Christ. He helped to start the Gaither Homecoming Bible and the Gaither Family Resources Center. She gave younger gospel artists, especially women, a way to get noticed and help them grow. They looked up to her as a singer and as a person. In a world that cared more and more about fame and looks, Gloria stayed focused on what was important. She said, "We didn't set out to be stars, we set out to be faithful." That promise has really made a difference. Gloria Gaither wrote songs, but behind each one was a life that she lived fully. She was never showy. She rarely tried to get attention, but anyone who was with her for even a second could feel how heavy her soul was. Her faith wasn't something she did. In the furnace of real life it was lived, practiced, tried, and made better. Gloria's most important mission was how she showed up in her daily life. Friends say she listens well, thinks deeply, and is wise. She didn't make noise in the quiet, she brought peace to it. During talks, she was the one who seemed to know more. Whenever there was trouble, she was the one who brought peace. She was very loyal as a wife. During their 60-year marriage, she and Bill worked together not only in music but also as true soulmates. There were some hard times in their union. Taking care of 3 kids while traveling, running a big ministry, and meeting everyone's standards were all hard. But Gloria was always there to keep things in perspective. She planned and cared for her children as a mother. Her children remember a mom who was always there even when she had a lot going on. After the kids were asleep, she wrote songs late at night. She talked and walked for a long time with her kids and taught them not only about Jesus but also about kindness, honesty, and duty. For a friend, she was true and smart. She helped artists, writers, pastors, and thinkers, and many of them say that she changed the way they thought about Christian mission. She was one of a kind because she could see other people's skills and bless them with love. Gloria Gaither was a woman of religion who worked to connect the past with the present. She loved old songs but wasn't afraid to ask tough questions. She stuck to what the Bible said, but she also made room for complexity. Her faith wasn't afraid of the little things. It was deep enough to hold it. Her life showed people what it means to live a good life, both in public and in private. In service, she showed that fame is not a sign of success, faithfulness is. That a song is only as strong as the person who wrote it. And that being a helper is the best way to be great. Gloria leaves behind more than just a list of well-known songs now that she is out of the public eye. She leaves behind a heritage of grace, wisdom, and strength. People will keep singing her songs in parks, at wakes, and in quiet hospital rooms. And happy family events for many years to come. But maybe even more important, her life will continue to encourage men and women to live meaningful, humble, and faith-filled lives. With the words she gave us, it seems only right that her own songs should play in this moment of goodbye. People called his son Jesus. He came to forgive, love, and heal. He was born and died. People around the world know Gloria Gaither for her spiritual depth and beautiful lyrics, but her family has always been her first mission. Behind every show, song, and book, there was always a home. And there was faith, laughter, long talks, and singing in that house. Their 3 kids are Suzanne, Amy, and Benjamin, born to her and Bill Gaither. Their mission has had an effect on all of them, but Gloria's steady hand and caring heart have changed each of them in their own unique ways. Suzanne Gaither Jennings, the oldest, has been a part of the Gaither business and mission for a long time. Working behind the scenes with her parents, Suzanne helped run the Gaither family's resources and wrote a number of songs with her mother, including some well-known homecoming hits. Suzanne Gaither is more than just a collaborator. She has carried the Gaither mission into the next generation by combining her business sense with a deep respect for their spiritual and musical legacy. The middle child, Amy Gaither Hayes, went her own way with her art. Amy is a poet, an actress, and a teacher. She got her love of language and books from her mother. In interviews, she has been honest about how intellectually rich her childhood was and how dinner chats were often about religion, art, and other interesting things. She once said that Ben co-founded Liveborn Media and has worked closely with his parents on many homecoming projects. Ben is a producer and singer. Even though his music is more modern, it is still based on truth, family, and faith. They all talk about their mother with awe, not just as a mom but also as a person to look up to. They remember how patient she was during the busy years of touring, how she would stay up late writing after putting them to bed, and how she would use daily events to teach them spiritual lessons. Family trips weren't fancy, but they were important. Time spent together was safe. Gloria never put her family last, even when the weight of service got too much for her. Gloria has been talking about wanting to slow down for a while now, and the Gaither family has been responding with a mix of thanks and tears. They've always known her as a strong, steady person who kept things together when life on the road got crazy. Now that she is taking a step back from the attention, her kids and grandchildren are rallying around her to respect her wish for a calmer holiday season. It's been made clear that her influence doesn't end here, it just changes. In new ways, Gloria Gaither's knowledge will keep getting to people through her books, re-released music, and old writings. Bill Gaither talked about his wife's choice in a recent interview with a tender mix of love and respect. Gloria has done a lot. Through her writing, she has given over 60 years of her life to the church, our family, and the world. I think it's time for her to rest in peace, hug her grandchildren, take a walk in the garden, and listen instead of talking all the time. That's what she deserves. Their grandkids, who are now teenagers and young adults, have also said they appreciate her being there. They've talked about how much they loved Nana's stories on social media, the one who always had a story in her heart and a book open next to her. People who know her say she is friendly, smart, and full of charm. Gloria's message of taking a step back, which she sent through a simple movie and some heartfelt words, has made fans all over the world very emotional. There were a lot of honors on social media sites, a lot of people commented on her goodbye video on YouTube, and many of them sent very touching notes. Her songs helped me get through cancer. The Gaither homecoming tapes led me to Christ, and Gloria's words always made me cry. My mom played because he lives at every birthday. Her words still bring her close even though she's gone. In honor of her work, churches all over the US and the world have held special events. Radio stations paid honors for an hour. Some fans went so far as to make movies where they shared personal stories about how her songs had changed their lives. What's interesting is how personal the answers have been. Gloria Gaither never tried to be famous, but people felt like they knew her because she was real. She wrote the words to songs that spoke to your pain and helped you remember that God was still in charge and that faith didn't have to be flashy to be real. Her songs are still played every day in nursing homes. They can be heard in prison chapel meetings. Her words live on in living rooms that are quiet thanks to hung sheet music and worn CDs. As fans say goodbye to her, not to her life, but to her public appearances, they all let out a grateful sigh. No, she hasn't said this is the end. She's just said it's time to rest and listen more than talk. In this way, she continues to show others how to do things, so even though her family and friends miss her on stage, they hold on tight to the bonds she made in their lives. A memory that isn't written in lights but in songs, and not carved in stone but in people's hearts.